Hello, everybody. My name is Sophia Tai. I work with the Office of Undergraduate Research, and this is the session on National Competitive Scholarships. Thank you for coming. This will be a focus on upcoming fall deadlines. So we are not talking about every single possibility, but ones that might be happening in the next 6 to 9 months, things that you want to think about, scholarships and fellowships that are upcoming, and maybe you want to plan for if you're maybe an earlier student considering applying to these. But there is a number of scholarships that we won't just be talking about today. So please check out our website, come talk to us. We would really like to meet all of you and potentially get you winning one of these scholarships. So without too much further ado, I wanted to introduce Kimberly Burton. She works for the Study Abroad Office as the Director of Education Abroad Program. Mm-hmm. And so she can talk about the Boren Scholarship.
Great. Thanks so much, Sophia, and thanks everyone for being here with us this afternoon. We have exciting options to talk to you about. I'm going to be talking about the nationally competitive scholarships that are for undergraduate students. Most of the rest of the scholarships you'll hear about in the session today are for graduate students. So you're planning for those, but I'm going to be talking about the ones that are available to you as a current undergraduate student, and obviously focused on study abroad. And there are many other study abroad scholarships that we help students with. So these are not the only ones, but these are the nationally competitive scholarships. Before I start, I also wanted to give you a quick update on what study abroad is doing related to COVID-19. So all of our 2021 programs, including summer 21, have all been canceled because of the virus. We are hopefully optimistic that we will have some students studying abroad again this coming fall, and very much more optimistic that we will have students studying abroad come winter, spring of 2022. So if any of you are still interested in possibly studying abroad while you're undergraduates, we're still taking applications for winter, spring. And so, please get in touch with us via the website, which is studyabroad.ucsd.edu. So now we'll talk about, start with the Boren Scholarship. So the Boren Scholarship is funding provided by the federal government. And the purpose of the scholarship is to educate US citizens about non-Western countries, languages, and cultures as they are related to national security. So national security is the important theme as when you look at the Boren Scholarship Program, and I'll define that for you in just a second. And again, these are for programs that are only non-Western. So you can see the list of countries here at the bottom of the slide. You may not use a Boren Scholarship for anything in the Western world. There are 3 pillars of the Boren program. One is language, that students are studying a language that the government deems as critical to national security. And you will find that the list of languages on the program website. That you are immersed in the culture. So the culture is the second pillar, that you're immersed in the culture of whatever country you're in, and that you are, taking courses and interacting with people and citizens of that country and learning about the culture. And then the other pillar is service, and that is public service in positions that are critical to US national security. And I'm going to come back and talk about the service component of the program in just a second. In terms of length of time, the Boren program, they prefer students who are studying for an academic year, but you can see here on the slide, they do make awards for students doing semester. And then the summer awards that you see there are really for language and culture study, because again, that's what the Boren program is all about. And the summer awards are for STEM majors only. So obviously we have a lot of STEM majors here, and so that may apply to you, but you would be needing to study the language and culture of the program to get a Boren Summer Award, and not your STEM, actual STEM discipline. So the Boren program is open to students of all majors, but again, you need to talk about that national security implication of your study abroad experience in the application that you will do. So the way that Boren defines national security, it's not just defense or intelligence, but it would include like economic security, food security, global health, think pandemic, so obviously, there have certainly been threats to the US in terms of the pandemic. So global health, biology, as long as you can tie it to national security and those themes, they will read your application and they will consider you for the award. Also, this is the service component that I mentioned earlier. The Boren requires a 1-year service sort of payback to the federal government for all of their recipients. And this is actually a great way, if you're interested in working for the federal government, this can be a wonderful way for you to get your foot in the door for jobs with the government once you are done. And you can do the service requirement, the 1 year, anytime. If you're going straight into graduate school, they'll wait for you, and you can do it after you finish your graduate degree. You can do it right after undergrad. You can do it a little later. So you can negotiate that with them as to when you want to do the service, but you do have to do it. Otherwise, you'd have to pay the funding back. But again, with the advantage you get with the service requirement is you will have access to federal jobs that are not published, not to the outside, to an outside applicant. So it's an internal job posting network of positions when you go to do your service requirement. And that's a way that a lot of people are able to get their foot in the door. The deadline for the Boren scholarships is usually the first week of February every year, but we have a campus deadline that's 2 weeks before that, because we will actually do a campus review and submit those ratings for you, which is a good thing, into the Boren system. And so it's usually the end of January. So even though this is not necessarily a fall program deadline, I wanted to share this with you because most of the work you'd want to do on Boren should be happening in the fall, and certainly talking with us about it should happen in fall. So the other thing I wanted to say is there are also Boren Fellowship for graduate students. So if you are not able to do the Boren as an undergrad, or you don't want to, or you apply and you're not accepted, you can always apply to get a fellowship at the graduate level. Thanks, Sophia. Well, we can move on to whatever you have next. Gilman, perfect. Then the Gilman scholarships. This is also a program of the federal government. And Gilman's purpose is to support students of limited financial means to study or intern abroad. The defining feature of the Gilman is what it says here at the bottom, and the requirements include is you must be a Pell Grant recipient at the time of application or the time of receipt when you would be getting the award. So that is the defining criteria. If you're not Pell eligible, unfortunately, you're not eligible to apply for Gilman. If you're not sure if you are or what that means, you can certainly get in touch with us and we can explain that to you. But it's basically a level of financial support that you need based on a financial aid application. So the Gilman program wants to support students who have been underrepresented in study abroad over time. And this includes first generation students, STEM majors, ethnically diverse students, students with physical limitations or learning limitations, and transfer students. But the Gilman is really open to all students. And again, the requirements are Pell eligibility, undergraduate students, US citizens, and that you're doing a credit-bearing study abroad program so that you're getting academic credit for that experience. There are 3 components to the application that you want to think about. There is a statement of purpose essay where you're talking about your goals and your goals for the program, which is pretty standard. But then there's also a community impact essay. And that's basically how are you going to serve as an effective citizen diplomat abroad? So they want you to talk about, how are you going to work with the people you're interacting with abroad to build mutual understanding, mutual appreciation, and respect. And then for the Gilman Awards, they ask all recipients to do some kind of a follow-on project. And so that can be anything. They're very open to students' ideas. It can be a video about your experience that you would share with maybe students in your major. It can be going back to your high school and talking with students there about study abroad and what you did and what you learned. It can be working with us in the office to do some kind of outreach. It can be working with your major department or a student org that you're part of. So you can look on the Gilman website and they have a variety of sample projects that students have done, but they're really open to anything and everything. So if you're super creative, you can do something like that too. The Gilman Awards are, they also will, you can see it's up to $5,000, but they also have these additional $3,000 up to $3,000 for critical need language awards. And so if you're going to be studying in or studying a language, again, deemed critical for the US government, they will automatically add that additional amount of money. So you don't have to submit a separate application for that. And we do have students every year who do get that additional $3,000. So the Gilman deadlines are usually in October for students going abroad in winter, spring. So that's coming up in the fall. And then in early March for summer and year programs for students going afterwards. And they usually award about 3,500 students annually. UC San Diego usually has about 40 to 50 recipients every year. So we do really well. And we got our list actually of fall recipients just yesterday. And again, we did really well, 20 to 30, I think, were in the pool. So again, there's a lot more money in Gilman than there is in some of the other programs. And so we offer Gilman scholarships or Gilman scholarship workshops in our office, and also essay writing to help students with this and other scholarships. So that's the Gilman program. And then we should be moving on to critical languages. Yeah, and then the critical language scholarship. So this program also funded by the federal government in an effort to expand the number of Americans studying critical languages. So you can get the theme here. And for this particular program, recipients are expected to continue your study of the language beyond the language scholarship and use those language skills and everything you've learned in your professional careers. So you can see the basic criteria here on the slide, so I won't talk about that. But on the CLS website, you will see a list of 15 languages that are deemed critical to the U.S., national security and economic prosperity. So you can see what they have there. And then the cool thing about this particular scholarship is this is a scholarship and a program all together in one. So the CLS program has universities abroad and language schools that they have identified to teach these particular languages. And you can see the languages listed there on the slide. And so when you apply to the program, you're automatically in whichever location you say you want to study Arabic, then they're going to put you here. There are a couple places where there are a couple different options in that one location. So you can see those when you go on the website. But it is a program and a scholarship all in one, which is really sort of nice. And again, you can see the criteria, but again, in your essay, you're going to want to talk about, your commitment to language learning and how you're going to use that language beyond that experience, the connection between language and your goals, personal, professional, academic. And then they're going to want you to talk about adaptability, sensitivity to people from other cultures, resilience to be successful abroad. And so again, you'll see that when you look at the Gilman or the CLS website. And their deadline is always in mid-November, so we don't have a date yet, but it should be posted usually midsummer. And they usually make about 500 awards every year. I actually know of one student this year, one undergrad who is going to be studying Arabic virtually, unfortunately, this summer, but hopefully by next summer would be back in person, but she's super excited about that. And so we do have UCSD recipients every year. And this is also open to graduate students, I should say. So again, if it's not something you can do as an undergrad, then it's something you could do as a graduate student. So again, we have information on other scholarships as well in our office. And so, do feel free to come in and see us. We're happy to help you. So I'm happy if there's any questions, Sophia, in the chat.
Yes, we have one question. Spanish is not offered in the scholarship?
Which, I don't know exactly which one. I think for, depending on the programs, I wouldn't think for CLS, you can see it's not considered that. I do know that for the Boren scholarships, they do allow students to be working in Spanish, but I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that you would already need to have a fair degree of fluency if it's Spanish or French. So if it's a more common Western language, and they expect those students to be advanced speakers, and then you'd also have to talk a lot about how you wanted to use that in terms of your other goals for the Boren program. So, and for Gilman, that's not a problem. I mean, it's not going to be the critical need language part, so you wouldn't get that additional, but you can certainly be going to any country for Gilman. There's no restriction on that in terms of the locations. I hope that answered that.
Great, thanks. There's a question about, I think this is about CLS as well. Is this open to recent graduates?
It says currently matriculated at a U.S. university. So you'd have to check the website. It may be that you need to be in a graduate program, but I'm not 100% sure. It might be, if you're doing a gap year, you might be eligible. I just can't remember, sorry.
No problem.
But they have a really good, CLS has an amazing FAQ page, lots of different questions. And I'm pretty sure a student has asked me that before, but I just can't remember for sure. But I want to say, yes, you could apply as long as you're enrolled now, but you should double check.
Sounds good. Thanks. I don't see any other current questions in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sophia can always find me. Or you're always welcome to find me in Study Abroad, but Sophia can always find me if you forget, and she'll forward any questions that any of you have. So
sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
For sure. All right, so moving on, our next speaker will be Dr. Ross Frank from the Ethnic Studies Department, and he will start with talking about the Rhodes Scholarship.
Okay, hi everybody. Thank you for coming. The Rhodes Scholarship is offered, there's a competition each year. As the as the saying goes, all roads lead to Oxford. So there's only one place that you can do a Rhodes Scholarship, and that's at Oxford University. The award is 2 years of study, a generous stipend, paying all the tuition expenses, and also some money for traveling. There are 32 awards, as it says there. They're in regional competitions, 16 across the United States. The Rhodes also awards scholarships in many other countries as well. So you can go to the website to see that if you are studying at UCSD, but actually a citizen of another country. Permanent residents and DACA recipients can receive a Rhodes Scholarship. And it's a 2-year graduate or undergraduate scholarship. For most of its history, most of the Rhodes Scholars have been doing a second undergraduate degree, and there's reasons for doing that. In the 80s, in the 1980s, it became more of a graduate degree, and now it's kind of reverting back, and people are starting to do second undergraduate degrees. So you can do MA, BA, or a DPhil, which is the English equivalent of a PhD. So any degree or combination of degrees over 2 years, if they're 2 one-year degrees, you can do in a Rhodes Scholarship. You can, and if you're doing a DPhil, you can often extend the Rhodes to a 3rd year to cover that. Now, Oxford, excuse me, Oxford is a world-class university in terms of its research, in terms of its cultural attributes and the historical location and the colleges themselves. It's an extraordinary place to go for a degree. And the Rhodes, because it's been around since the early 1900s, is quite prestigious as well. So as I said, there are 16 regions. There are 2 scholars that are awarded through the competition for each region. You can apply for one of 2 regions, either the region where your undergraduate degree is from. So if you are an undergraduate at UCSD, you will be applying through UCSD no matter which region you apply to. But the region you choose is either the one where we are, which is Southern California, or the one where your permanent residency is. It's an online application. The application is accessible from the Rhodes website in early July. So it's not up right now for the 2021 competition, which will be awarded at the end of the year. But you can see the materials for the current round that just finished. I am the UCSD faculty representative for the Rhodes. You have to consult with me as soon as possible, particularly if you're planning to apply for the coming year. The Rhodes application is due on October 6th, but UCSD has an application due to me a month ahead of time. So that would be, for us, it'd be September 7th. So September 6th is a holiday, Labor Day, I think. The Rhodes is particularly tricky because it's more than a normal academic scholarship, both in terms of the criteria that they're looking for and the terms of the kind of application that you have to mount in order to receive a Rhodes. The selection criteria are very specific. You can see them on the website, but basically it's literary and scholastic attainment, energy to use one's talents to the full, and that used to be considered related to uh, success and excellence in sports, but now it's been kind of broadened out to making sure that you have an interest in doing things other than simply academic things, and that you're active and have the energy to participate in the larger things that one might do at Oxford and in your life. Truth, courage, devotion to duty, sympathy for and protection of the weak, kindliness, unselfishness, and fellowship. That's another of the criteria. And then the last one is moral force, or character and instincts to lead and take an interest in one's fellow beings. So given that, you can see that what they're looking for is someone who has wide interest in the world, is multifaceted, excels in academics and scholarship, has a goal in mind in terms of what one wants to do with your life, not necessarily one thing, but also an active participation in the world in a number of different registers. And they love to see a fully complex person that has many different interests all working together in tandem. That also means that for the application, there is a challenge. And I want to just lay out just in a few minutes what one needs to do to mount a serious push at getting a Rhodes Scholarship. One of the things that is most difficult, it seems, for UCSD undergraduates, and you can apply and after you've graduated, you have to not have attained your 25th birthday at the time the application is due. So that's the way they do that. It says 23 years old on October 1st of the application in the slide there. That may be correct. It used to be that you had to do it before their 25th birthday, but so the age, there is the age limit there that one wants to look at. For UCSD students, one of the most difficult things is obtaining extraordinary letters of recommendation. And these letters of recommendation have to go above and beyond simply the letter that one would generally use to get yourself into a graduate program. They have to, at some level, illuminate some part of your character that speaks to those more holistic, difficult for selection criteria that I read before. You need at least 5 letters. You can have as many as 8. 4 of them have to be academic letters from people who have actually instructed you. It can be in a lab, but they actually need to be, full-blown academic letters. The other part of that difficulty is that at UCSD, professors seem to be really well versed in writing letters to get you into graduate school, law school, medical school, etc. But they seem to be less able to write this more capacious letter. So you and I will work on the people you choose to write those letters as part of the process of getting the Rhodes. The rest of the application is more straightforward. There is a personal statement. And just so you know, you cannot accept any help in writing your personal statement. This is specific to the Rhodes Scholarship. Most other awards and scholarships and fellowships don't care if you have someone read it over for spelling errors or grammar or even ideas. But the Rhodes is very particular. You have to actually sign a statement, and so do I, that you have not had any help on your personal statement. So as you can see, the personal statement and the 5 to 8 letters of recommendation are key to getting the interview that can get you one of the 2 slots in your region to get one of the 32 awards for a Rhodes Scholarship. So if you're interested in this round, contact me as quickly as possible. And my information is clickable up there, but see, I can put it in the chat, and it's on the website too. And then also, I mean, we'll take questions here, but I will stay around for a few minutes after we move to the other awards, and you can chat questions to me directly, for a few minutes after we finish up. Thank you, Sophia, for inviting. And everyone apply. We need a UCSD Rhodes Scholar. We've gotten interviews, we've gotten close, but we actually haven't had one yet. And there's absolutely no reason we shouldn't have a Rhodes Scholar from UCSD.
I completely agree. Thanks, Dr. Frank. We actually also do have one more slide about the Truman, if you don't mind talking about that.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am also the representative for the Truman Award. And this is a public service award. You can come from any area of your major, your minor, whatever, but it is for someone who has an interest in public service. You apply as a junior. They award quite a number of them, and it varies. It says 65, but sometimes it's more, and because they have extra money. It's a fair amount of money towards graduate school, and you have to kind of pledge that after the graduate school, you will spend at least 3 of the following 7 years in some form of public service. And just like Kim was talking about some of the other fellowships, they define public service in a very wide and broad. So it can be in government at any level. It can be an NGO. It can be other forms of public service. So they're not picky there. It does involve being in part of a cohort that gives you a broad network. So it's a really useful scholarship to receive if you are interested in public service and leadership and public policy. And I've worked with a number of different folks in very different areas. The application is fairly straightforward. There's a website that I help you get on, so you do have to make an appointment with me if you're going to apply. You can start. I don't think the new version of the website is open yet, but towards the summer it will open up, and I can register you. Everything is fairly straightforward. It's all done online. I actually get to look over each of the things that you put in online until we finish with the application. The one thing it requires, and it's the key thing, is it requires a policy brief. So you have to have an area of interest. You have to have you have to define the problem. You have to have a solution to the problem that's some form of public policy in the form of a memo. You have to say what the obstacles will be in terms of implementing your policy, and it's all very very concise. It's a very fixed number of words you can use. Again, I get to work with you in perfecting that if you wish. So that's the way that works. So again, we have had. I'm not sure we have recently had an awardee, but we have had interviews in the last few years. And again, there's no reason in the world shouldn't be getting Truman Fellows here.
All right. So I don't know if we have any questions right now, but we do have a couple extra minutes. I know that you also advise for the UDAL. Do you want to take a minute to talk about that? I don't have a slide for it.
Yeah, just think about this. The UDAL comes up a little, I think it's in March. The UDAL has a number of different flavors. So one of them is environmental, the area of environmental advocacy. And that's, again, very broad, but it's I think it's $5,000 towards whatever level of schooling you do next. So it's a nice chunk of change. There's a very simple application. Again, it's a web-based application. Again, I have to register you up front. And then you simply fill out the application and your essay. The essay has a little hook. You have to, it has a website that has speeches and policies and laws that were advocated by and passed by or written by one of the UDOLs that served in government. And you have to have an essay that incorporates one of those elements in that essay and relates to the area that you're interested in. So there's awards for environmental advocacy, and then there are Native American awards for enrolled members in federally recognized Native nations, and there are two flavors. One is for working in the health field, public health, medicine, and the other is kind of tribal governance and policy. And so those are two different things. Again, I advise on those as well. And these are really good awards to get. They often lead to further other scholarships later on because they're fairly straightforward. And if any of those areas, environmental or tribal health or tribal government and policy, are where you are, please get in touch with me. And that doesn't have to be immediate. It can be next fall. That would be perfectly fine.
Great, thanks, Dr. Frank. There was one quick question. Who can nominate a student for the Truman Scholarship?
I'm the one who nominates you, in the sense that I register you in the website, and I do the institutional endorsement at the end when your online application is completed, and I've validated it. I validate each part. So basically, you put yourself up. You don't need anyone to. You can come forward yourself for all of these, but then you consult with me, and I get you into the system and work with you until the application is complete. And that's true of the UDOL and the Truman. It's also technically true of the Rhodes, but there's no mechanism in the website that actually loops back to me. So we have to work closer in tandem to get things done properly.
Okay, thanks very much, Dr. Frank. Our next speaker will be Michelle Monroy from the Graduate Division, and she'll be starting off with a Fulbright grant.
Thank you, Sophia. Hi, so my name is Michelle Monroy. I'm the Graduate Fellowship Advisor in Graduate Division. So I'm here to talk to you about the Fulbright, and I am the official Fulbright program advisor. So if you have any questions about Fulbright or are interested in applying, please let me know. So a couple of things about Fulbright. I think the best way to kind of start talking about Fulbright is to understand what the mission statement is about Fulbright, what their goal is, right? So their goal is to increase mutual understanding through exchange. So basically, after World War II, there was a senator named William Fulbright who sold a surplus of weapons from the war, and with that money, Fulbright was funded. So the whole purpose of this is to really connect people across the country. It's a diplomatic mission to really make sure that we understand others, right, from other countries, and really open our perspectives and broaden our horizons. That's the main goal of Fulbright. And they have different opportunities for you to accomplish this. But before we go into those different award mechanisms, I just wanted to mention some basic things about eligibility. You do have to be a US citizen by the application deadline. You also do have to have your bachelor's degree by the time of award. What that means is basically you can apply if you're graduating this June, or if you are a student, an undergraduate student in your last year, that means that you can also start applying this year. So the deadline is in October. So if you are going to graduate either this year, 2021, or you're going to graduate 2022, you are okay to apply. It's also open to graduate students. So just in case, if you are interested in this program after you graduate and once you enter your graduate program, this is still an opportunity that is on the table for you. So some of the different kinds of awards that you can do. So remember, their mission is mutual understanding through exchange. And there are 3 main ways that you can apply for a Fulbright Award. The first one is an English teaching assistant. So there are about 1,200 awards in approximately 75 countries that have English teaching awards. So basically that means that you are going to be an assistant in a classroom abroad, and your main goal is to teach English and bring US culture to the classroom. The amount of involvement really depends on the kind of country that you go to and where you're placed, but there are some students that are basically either helping their teacher assistants, or they are teaching the class themselves. So it just, again, it depends. Whenever it comes to Fulbright, you'll always hear the great it depends. It depends on the kind of award that you're applying to, and it also depends on the country. So just keep that in mind and take all of this information with a grain of salt, because once you actually get down to the country that you're applying for, there are extra eligibility requirements and also different student profiles that each country is looking for. So again, that first opportunity is the English Teaching Assistant Award. I think that's the award that is most popular with our undergrads. The second kind of award is a research grant. As an undergrad, even though you are graduating, you might have a research that you're pursuing. Maybe you did an undergraduate like thesis or something, and you wanted to take that research to the next level. This would be a great way to do that. So that would be the research grant, and that is grouped under the Open Study Research Award. Fulbright likes to put these two together, open study and research, but they are kind of different opportunities that you are applying for. So keep in mind that is the research part of the Open Study Research Award. That is number 2. Number 3 is the Open Study Award. The Open Study Award basically allows you to pursue a degree abroad. So basically, again, the difference between the Research Award and the Open Study Award, the Research Award, you are only doing your research. The Open Study Award, your goal is the degree at the end of the program. So under the Open Study Research Award, you can propose either research to the country of your choice or a degree program. So just make sure that there is a difference, right? If you do apply for the Open Study Award, you will be submitting both an application to the institution of your choice and a Fulbright application. So you'll be putting in those 2 applications simultaneously. So those are the 3 kind of major groups if you want to do a Fulbright. There's the English teaching, there's the research grant, and there's the Open Study Award. And keep in mind that there's also more specialized awards, but those vary by country. There's National Geographic, but I encourage you to take a look at the website and kind of dig into each country and see what you're looking for. A little bit more about what the award includes. It actually includes round trip travel. It covers room board. It covers a monthly stipend. Again, it depends on the country that you're going to and where you're placed, that your monthly stipend will vary. It also covers accidental and sickness benefits and other possible benefits. Again, that depends by award. Our support for dependents, research allowance, tuition, language lessons, enhancement activities, disability-related accommodations as well. I also did want to mention that there is a Critical Language Enhancement Award. So if you are pursuing perhaps a research award and you need to be able to speak the host language, you need just a little bit more preparation in that language in order to carry out your research or whatever project you're doing. Just know that there is this Critical Language Enhancement Award, which basically provides 3 to 6 months of intensive language study. It is only available for select languages and select host countries, but just know that that is also an option. And just some of the basic components that you want to prepare for your Fulbright application are basic personal data, essays, which are statement of grant purpose and your personal statement, references, transcripts, and also I did want to mention, there are two ways to apply for the Fulbright. You can apply at large, which means that you will not have to follow any of our deadlines set by the campus. You can apply whenever you just have to submit your application by the deadline, and you are free to apply at large if you are graduating this June. If you are actually graduating in June of 2022, you are required to apply through the campus. And if you apply through the campus, we have something called the campus committee, which basically means we ask you to submit your application about a month in advance. Application is due in October, so we'll ask you to submit the application in September. And you will meet with a panel of 3 to 5 faculty, including myself, and I'm not faculty, I'm staff, but you'll meet with them, and they will give you feedback on your application, and you're also able to ask questions and get feedback, and then all of that can go, you'll be able to edit your application after that meeting. So then you'll get feedback, and you can just make your application even stronger. So that is the purpose of the campus interview and the campus process. We will also give you an official campus endorsement, which can't hurt. So just keep all of that in mind. That is the campus process. Whew, and I'm running out of time. That was a lot of Fulbright. Okay, next. If you have any questions, let me know. I will put a link to the application page, not application page, but where you can find more information about Fulbright in the chat on the graduate division website. Remember, I am housed in the graduate division. So if you're an undergrad and you end up on graduate division, just know that that's why. It's because I'm housed there. Now a little bit about, switching gears to the NSF GRFP. So the NSF GRFP is basically a fellowship for STEM disciplines, but it also includes social sciences who are pursuing either research-based masters or doctoral degrees at accredited US institutions. Basically, it is a 5-year award that includes 3 years of financial support, and the annual stipend is $34,000, and a cost of education allowance. So the cost of education allowance, what that means is that goes towards your tuition and fees, and that is a total of $12,000. If you do end up going to UCSD and you're like, tuition and fees is actually $17,000, your department is expected to make up that difference. But just so that you know, it does cover the annual stipend, and the annual stipend is actually 12 months. It's not that limited to the academic year. It's the full year. And remember, even though they call it a 5-year award, just remember you're only allowed to claim 3 years of financial support for that award. And let's see, deadlines differ by the type of subject that you're applying for. Just watch out for that in the NSF GRFP application page. Some of the application components that you'll find are personal relevant background and future statement goals, a graduate research plan statement, letters of recommendation, transcripts, and letters of reference. And all of this will have to be uploaded to the FastLane website. And just remember to make sure that you stick to the formatting guidelines, because if you don't, remember, they receive a ton of applications per year. And if you do not stick to the formatting guidelines, like if your application, it uses a size 10 font instead of a size 12, like they're requesting, that is an easy way to get yourself kicked out without even letting them review your application. So remember formatting. And then I wanted to pass it over to an NSF GRFP recipient that Sophia kindly connected us, and she's going to tell you a little bit about her experience with the program. So I will hand it over to Marigold to talk about her experience.
Yeah, thanks so much. Hi, I'm Marigold. I'm currently a 4th year here at UC San Diego, majoring in chemical engineering. I applied to fellowships and graduate school in this last application cycle, so I've already heard back from everything. I was awarded the NSF GRFP, and I highly recommend everyone applies for it. It gives you external funding for your graduate career, so you don't have to worry about being funded by your department or your professor during your graduate study. You don't have any pressures to apply for any more fellowships during graduate study or try to get external funding. one other thing is that you do get 2 chances to apply. So in the requirements, it says graduating college senior or grad student. So you can only apply 2 times, once as a graduating college senior or once as a graduate student. So if you don't apply as a graduating college senior, you lose that chance, and you can only apply once as a graduate student. If you do end up applying as a graduating college senior and you don't end up getting it, they actually provide you with feedback on your application that can be very useful for applying again or applying to different fellowships. So it's actually, in my experience, I found that applying for NSF GRFP was a really great way to prepare for my graduate school applications, because the deadline is quite before the graduate school applications are due, since it's due in October and graduate schools usually in like December or January. So it gave me a really good basis for applying to graduate school in terms of like having things written, thinking of who was going to write my letters of recommendation and what I actually want to study in graduate school. But I do warn, and this is one of my tips, that the application is a little bit different in how it's reviewed than your graduate school application or at other fellowship applications, as they have 2 very like unique and specific ways of reviewing, which is based on your intellectual merit and broader impact, which can be a little hard to distinguish and understand, but that's how the reviewers are going to be judging your application, and they're going to be looking how you demonstrate this intellectual merit and broader impact. So I encourage that you go read up on what those are and maybe look up online guides of what those are and how your experiences or how your motivations for graduate study fall under those 2 bins, to make it as easy for the reviewer to understand. So yeah, there's 2 big components to the application, which is your research proposal and your personal statement. The research proposal can be a little bit intimidating, as a lot of people don't know what they're going to write about, but I would say just combine what you're interested in and what you have some experiences in to try to get a research proposal that's convincing as something that you want to study and that you have the competency to study. But as a final note on that, you're also not held to what you write in your research proposal. So write about something you're interested in, write about something that you like kind of have some background in, to make yourself the best applicant possible. And I hope all of you can apply and get this fellowship if you're interested.
Thanks very much, Marigold. I do have a couple of questions. I'm not sure if Michelle's still around. One question is this for non-fully funded doctoral programs? And this should be the NSF GRFP.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Is the NSF GRFP for non-fully funded doctoral programs?
I'm not sure what they mean by that. I'm not sure if that means that like perhaps the department didn't offer them financial assistance when they applied. So the only way that I can really answer that is, so if you do get the NSF GRFP, number one, it can really help you as you're applying to other schools, because that kind of makes you a little bit more, I don't like saying it like this, but like more attractive, because you're coming in with your own funding. And like Marigold said, you're not going to have to be using funding from your mentor or anything like that. So it does make you a little bit more, so, and it is a portable award too. Like if you decide to move to another institution, you take that funding with you, because you're the PI on, well, technically you're the PI on that, not in name, but like, you're taking that with you. But if you do get the NSF GRFP, like NSF really wants to be the sole funder of your education during those 3 years that you're receiving. So you really wouldn't be able to pair it with any other kind of funding that you're getting. There's exceptions that need to be submitted. So I don't know if that helps. I wasn't quite sure about the question, but I think hopefully that helps. Like if you do receive this, do expect that most of your funding is going to come from the GRFP. Those 2 other years, it might be filled with like teaching or something else that your department helps you with. But just know that every program is different. But if you do get the NSF, that is pretty much going to be your sole source of funding. So I hope that helps.
Thanks. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Marigold, that you're aware of?
So if for like in my experience, like my graduate education was like already like fully funded, but then the NSF GRFP just added like additional perks, and like it makes it, you know, so that your department and that your professor doesn't have to pay for you. So it does kind of give you a little bit more freedom in what you want to study, or maybe who you want to work with, in case that professor like doesn't have funding to take a student for that year or something like that. But yeah, that's what I have to say on the funding from the NSF GRFP.
Great, thanks. And then one more quick question for Michelle before we go to Dr. Artis. What constitutes academic excellence in the Fulbright application?
Oh, that's it's difficult. So I'm going to say that they're not necessarily, academic excellence is not the focal point of a Fulbright. They're really going to be looking at, like, if you, and again, I warned you, it depends on the award you're applying for. If you are applying for research, they're really looking at your research application. Is it feasible? Does it have impact? Do you have a concrete plan? Do you have the correct support in terms of like your affiliates in the host country? They're really looking at, again, feasibility and impact if you're applying for a research award. If you're thinking about applying for an ETA award, they're really looking at like motivation, right? So why do you want to go to this host country? How does this fit into the bigger plan of your career trajectory? You know, if you're going to be a med student, how does teaching English abroad, how is that going to help you when you're a doctor, right? So they're really looking for like it's a more holistic approach. I will say that when I've some of the committee reviews at the national level, they do look at GPA sometimes if it's like the breaking point, like they're trying to decide between the two. But they do also take into account is like, there was one student that their academic trajectory, like it started low, but they kept continuing and kind of showed a story of growth from the student, you know, and it matched up with what they said in their application. They were like, oh, you know, like I struggled, but obstacle, and now I'm better. I've improved. I've continued my, I've continued my growth. And then there was just the other student that just had a good solid GPA, but I think they were more partial to the student with the story of growth and how it fit into their project and everything. So Fulbright is really looking more for like a holistic approach. They're really looking for that application. But I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a really good GPA, but just think about that too, and think about the extracurriculars that can get tied into your application and everything. So yeah. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to our next speaker, Dr. David Artis, and he will be starting off with the George Mitchell Scholarship.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me. The Mitchell Scholarship is named after former United States Senator George Mitchell, who helped negotiate the Good Friday Accords. The scholarship is good for 1 year post-baccalaureate study in Ireland. As you can see, it's a very exclusive. There are only 12 Mitchell candidates every year. You can apply to any of the 11 participating institutions. There's 7 universities in the Republic of Ireland, 2 in Dublin, and 2 in Northern Ireland. So, it's not always the case that Northern Ireland is in play, but it is now. You need 4 letters of recommendation. That is in addition to an institutional endorsement. And the institutional endorsement would come from me. So let's make sure that if you're interested in the Mitchell, that we begin a conversation about it very soon. It is the institutional date is, as you can see, September 24th. So we have, I just lost the slide. Our internal date is September 14th. So this is one where you will need a very thoughtful application. You should apply to between 3 and 5 programs, universities, and up to 3 universities up to 5. They want to make sure that you have really done a thorough job of reading up and picking the right program, not just deciding that you want to go to Ireland. You can rank them, but you might not be accepted to your first choice. One of the very good things about the Mitchell program is that because it's so small, because there are only 12, and because Ireland is small enough to navigate, the Mitchell scholars actually do get together sometimes during the Mitchell year, and they stay in touch afterwards. So that's a very good thing in terms of establishing networks. You can apply for a study in any field. So you just need to remember the 4 letters of recommendation, a personal statement of 1,000 words. After the application is submitted, you'll receive instructions on submitting a video. You'll have approximately 72 hours to submit for a video interview, and that should be completed by September 27th. So bear in mind, we want to be in touch over the summer, since the application will be due fairly soon after you get back. Unless there are any other questions, I think, or any questions about Mitchell, we might be able to move on.
I think we're good right now, but if you do have any questions, please do put them in the chat. We can circle back to them, and we'll move on to the British Marshall.
The British Marshall Scholarship, established by the US State Department. As you can see, you do have to be a US citizen. You have to have graduated. You must have your bachelor's degree in hand. It says you cannot have received it before 2019, but there is no upper age limit. And you should not have started study at a British institution. So you need 0.7 GPA. I just want to focus for 1 second on the term academic and ambassadorial potential. I think a lot of us can talk about what academic merit signifies. You do need a 3.7 GPA. We can, all have a sense of leadership potential, but ambassadorial potential might throw some people. And remember, I said this is a fellowship that was started by the State Department, and for a while, I think a number of people saw it as a way to enter the Foreign Service, which is not any longer a requirement. So if you go to the Marshall page, I'll just take a couple of minutes to do that for you and say what they have under the ambassadorial potential criteria. First, knowledge of US-UK relations. Is there evidence that the candidate understands the general relationship as well as specific aspects of the relationship that are pertinent to his or her field of studies? So you want to demonstrate how you are going to use being in the UK as part of your study, and how you have already done enough background research. Maybe you've traveled there, but that's not a requirement, but just so that you know enough that you can take advantage of this. 2, evidence of transferable extracurricular activities. So what have you done that you can put to use in the UK to meet the Marshall Scholars' objective of gaining a greater understanding and appreciation of contemporary Britain? 3, interpersonal skills and ability to engage with others. Do you have a track record of proactively and enthusiastically building productive relationships with people outside of your peer group? So think about the kinds of things you've done that have forced you to leave your comfort zone, or maybe you left it very willingly, but things that you've done to put yourself into a position where you've had to learn to appreciate some of the kind of different cultural practices or sympathies and understandings of other people. And what have you done to increase your understanding and to increase their understanding of you? Do you appreciate the needs, motives, and concerns of others? How can you make that real to someone reading the application? And finally, self-confidence and the ability to seize opportunities. So how have you, the candidate, responded to opportunities, and what was the result? That's kind of a clue to ambassadorial potential. What have you done to enlarge your thinking outside of your own background? Let me say fairly quickly, you can apply, this is a master's degree program, you can apply for a 1 or 2 year master's. You can apply to a great many universities in the United Kingdom. And they're basically the same schools for the master, the 1 year master's or the 2 year master's. So we're talking about the University of Bath, the University of Exeter, Edinburgh, University of Kent, King's College London, University of Liverpool, Newcastle, on and on. You can also apply through this program to a number of the colleges at Oxford and Cambridge. One of the differences between the 1 year master's and the 2 year master's is that the 2 year master's can be extended. Don't expect this, but it can be extended by the institution to a 3rd year if you want to pursue a doctorate. At Oxford, they will extend up to 3 of their scholars stay for a 3rd year so they can pursue a doctorate. At Cambridge, they will extend up to 2 scholars for a 3rd year. But you shouldn't apply for the 2 year master's thinking that you'll get the extension to a 3rd year. As you can see, it's fairly rare. 2 students at one, 3 students at the other. Really think about what you would get out of a 1 year master's or a 2 year master's, and that will be really the strength of your application, showing that you've researched the programs and that you've made these decisions based on a real match of your skills and your aspirations. Like the Mitchell, they expect you to submit more than 1 application. So with the Mitchell, they ask you to apply to 3 to 5 institutions. With the Marshall, at least 2. And they've fairly recently increased the number of Marshall scholars from 40 to 50. So it's not quite as exclusive as the Mitchell, but it's very demanding, as you can imagine. This is due, if I haven't said so already, we need everything to them by September 30th, which means our internal deadline of September 14th makes a lot of sense. In fact, please make sure that you are spending the summer in touch with your letter writers. There'll be 3 letters that you need, plus the institutional endorsement, and you need to rank them. And the institutional endorsement would come from me. So please make sure that we are in touch and that I can speak, if I decide to give you this endorsement, I can speak knowledgeably about your plans. Next one. Oh, Goldwater Scholarship. One of the great things about the Goldwater is that you do not have to wait until you're an alum. In fact, this is an award for rising sophomores and juniors in the natural sciences, engineering, and mathematics. You can see there's quite a generous prize. This is nationally competitive. Last year, I believe there were 1,356 applicants across the country. I get to nominate 4 UC San Diego students, 5 if one of them is a transfer. And this last cycle, we were very, very lucky to have 3 students win, 3 of the 5. It's always due the last Friday in January. And we have actually a couple of expert witnesses. I'm just going to say this as someone who interviews a number of Goldwater candidates and makes the decision. The letters of recommendation are incredibly important. That's why, and the prompt will tell you that it's really useful if someone writing the letter has seen you in an academic environment. It's not necessary for you to have a research experience, but if you have had one, you need a letter from the person who supervised you in that research experience. You'll also need to write a brief research essay, brief but complete and thorough. And you'll complete an application. And I believe Claire and Vincent are both here. Is this a good time to? So just before I turn the floor over to them, let me just say also, when I nominate students, one of the things that's maybe intangible but makes such an impression on me is the students' enthusiasm for research. And that gives me a clue that this is a candidate who is going to be able to stick with it through what may be years of study and then years of practice. So please make sure that that comes across in your application. So now I'll turn it over to our guest. Sophia, do you want to introduce them?
No problem, yes. So we have two undergraduates. Claire Zhang is actually here at UC San Diego, and Vincent Thompson is actually a peer mentor from another university. And so they will each be talking a little bit about their experiences and maybe encouraging students to apply and what you might want to think about in the application. So we'll start with Claire.
Hi, my name is Claire Zhang. I'm a junior here at UC San Diego. I'm a bioengineering biotech major, and I applied for the Goldwater Scholarship this last cycle and was awarded one of the scholarships. So I actually first heard about Goldwater my fall quarter of sophomore year. So it was a little bit too late for me, I think, personally, to apply as a sophomore. I think like there are plenty of like accomplished sophomores at that point who are like definitely competitive, but I didn't think I was at that point yet. So I decided to wait another year to apply the summer before my junior year. And one of the reasons I applied, I guess, is I've been doing research for like quite a while, and it's something that I wanted to do like as a career in the future. So for example, as an undergrad, I joined the lab winter quarter of my freshman year, and I've been in that lab since. And I thought that like the Goldwater Scholarship would be a useful like opportunity to benchmark my own research experiences and aptitude against students from other universities, which is like not something you get an opportunity to do very often. And I feel like that's something that's pretty useful when it comes to later on, like for me personally, medical school admissions or like graduate school admissions. And I guess if I were to offer some advice, I would say to try to get that meaningful research experience started early. As Dr. Artis said, it's not like entirely required for you to have previous research experience. And with the whole like COVID situation, I'm sure they would be more accommodating to that. But it's really difficult to write a good like personal statement and like research essay about why you want to do research in the future if you haven't like been engaged in it yourself. So I would highly recommend trying to find those experiences early on in college. And that's like one of the few things that you can control like really ahead of time is having those like sustained research experiences to talk about. And that also lends itself to those letters of rec that Dr. Artis mentioned. So again, it's really difficult to have someone speak to your aptitude as a researcher in the future if they haven't seen you do it themselves. And then of course, keep your grades up. And another thing would probably be to practice communicating your work to an audience that isn't like an expert in that specific subfield that you're working in. So I definitely got a lot of practice doing this on the application itself, but I wish I would have done more of it prior, because the people reading your application might not necessarily be experts in your field. They can be experts in like the general broader field, but often, you know, people fall into the trap where they like start talking about the nitty-gritty, and it doesn't appeal to like a wider audience. And personally, I can't speak to precisely what they're looking for in a Goldwater scholar. I only like see it from my perspective, but In my application, I definitely try to convey like intellectual curiosity as well as like a passion, a sustained passion for research, indirectly through the way like I describe my research rather than just like with saying that I have a passion for this, and to try to like paint a clear picture of where I want to see myself in the future as a physician scientist. Yeah, I think those are like the key things that I would mention.
Thanks very much, Claire. Vincent, would you like to take the floor for a minute?
Sure. So I'm Vincent Thompson. I'm a incoming PhD student at Rice University, and I'm also here as a representative of the Diversity and Inclusion Mentorship Program for the Goldwater Scholars community. So I think speaking on what it was like for me to apply, I had a similar experience to Claire's, where I learned about it in my sophomore year in the fall. And I was in the same situation where I had only had that one summer of research, and I didn't feel like I really had done anything too compelling. I was mostly learning the ropes. I wish in retrospect that I would have applied anyway, because it doesn't count against you, and all it's going to do is hone that skill where you're learning how to write those essays, and you're building relationships with letter writers. And so I think that that's some really good advice is don't let your insecurities about whether or not you're capable or your abilities there yet hang you up. I think that you can get a lot out of the whole process, regardless of if you win. Also, I had spoken with this to Dr. Artis earlier, and I think that you want to use all of your essays fully. Like I think there's 2 optional essays, maybe only 1 optional essay. I think there's 2 now with COVID. There's an optional COVID essay, and then there's one about anything that, any adversity that you faced. I think you want to use those as much as possible to tell your story, because while they are looking for the next generation of research academics in STEM, they also want to know that you have that ability to overcome adversity. That's a huge part of getting a PhD and continuing to do research, is sort of having that grit that lets you, come through when things get difficult. So in my role as a potential mentor for the Diversity and Inclusion Program, I wanted to give a shout out to that. Our whole program is developed to try and raise the number of underrepresented Goldwater scholars. And so while I was saying that applying early is good experience, it can also be really helpful to just talk to other people who have gone through the process early on to help guide you through that process and get you on the right track early as far as getting to research experiences, talking to letter writers. They can help you to maybe verbalize some of that stuff a bit better. And so that's what we do. And I just wanted to say that I'm going to be giving my information to Sophia and Dr. Artis. So if you're interested, we love freshmen, sophomores to get a hold of us, and we'll match you up with a mentor who will then help you essentially become competitive for this award. We'll work with you to that end. I know for me, when I was applying, another huge help for me was just talking with other Goldwater scholars at my university. So I had a really close friend, and in that sophomore year, when I found out about it, the way I found out was he told me that I was going to win a Goldwater scholarship. And that really lit a fire in me to try to win a Goldwater scholarship. And before that, I had never heard of it. So I think it can be really helpful to have somebody else there who's done it, who believes in you. And that you can ask questions and, say, hey, how did you word something like this? Or what would your recommendation be for talking to a potential research advisor or a letter writer? And so, like I said, I'm going to leave my information here, and I would love to hear from anybody who's interested in pursuing a Goldwater scholarship and getting to know you and help you through that process. If you guys have any other questions, just in general, I'd love to answer them as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks so much, Vincent, Claire, for just giving your perspective. Dr. Artis, anything you wanted to add on?
Simply that I think I might have said rising sophomores and juniors, but it's sophomores and juniors. One of the great things if you apply as a sophomore and surprise yourself and win it, or just win it outright, the award is renewable. So you can actually receive it as a sophomore and a junior. So that's another reason to consider applying as a sophomore, even if you feel like maybe you don't have the strongest case built yet. Trust me, I won't nominate you if I don't think that you have a good chance of winning. So that's also another reason for us to engage in conversation as soon as possible. And I think that people who've been through the process with me steering them know that I don't mind meeting with our candidates multiple times. So.
Great, thanks very much. One quick question. Does faculty letter recommendation mean they have to be professors, or can that be also like campus employers or other people such as that?
So my sense is that you want at least one professor, usually 2 faculty members, but if someone's not a faculty member, it should be, again, someone who can speak to your academic potential from a real position of direct knowledge. So someone who's taught you in class, maybe if you've had an internship or a summer job that's directly related to the kind of work you want to do, that person can also write a letter. Some of the letters that might be great character references, say from a coach or someone who worked with you on like a public service project. Those might be great letters to some things, but I don't know that I would recommend them for Goldwater. If I could say one more thing, you heard Claire mention being a physician scientist, and so even though the Goldwater Foundation page says natural sciences, engineering, and mathematics, someone who wants an MD, even an MD without the MD PhD, can be eligible to apply for the Goldwater as long as that person really does want to be what Claire said, a physician scientist, someone who's primarily involved with research, not a clinician who primarily wants to see patients.
All right, so moving on, next will be the Knight Hennessy Scholars Program.
So the Knight Hennessy Scholars Program, this is for graduate study at Stanford. This is fully funded for at least 3 years in almost all fields at Stanford. There are a couple of things to say about it. First is that, as you can see, you can be a citizen of any country. So this is unlike the Marshall and the Mitchell, where you have to be a US citizen. In fact, one of the ideas behind the Knight Hennessy is to get people from different backgrounds together. So there is actually a Knight Hennessy community. You are not only a Knight Hennessy scholar, you become part of this group where Stanford has actually built this very nice facility just for the Knight Hennessy scholars, and they can have meals together and have special talks together and really facilitated discussions. One of the ideas is to have people, very talented people from all studies, get to know each other and exchange information, broaden their own perspective. So that's one of the really very good things about it. It is due October 6th. The application doesn't open until August 1st. So even though you won't be able to apply until August 1st, please start talking to me, and we can look at the fields that some minor changes in last year's application. One of them is that the video that was required before will now be by invitation only. There are a couple of other minor changes in the application, so you definitely want to talk to me about those if you're seriously interested in Knight Hennessy, but this one does not need a letter of endorsement from me. I can, however, endorse applications. So here's what you should know. If you as an applicant and I work together, I will not write a separate letter of recommendation for you, but I will send to Stanford a ranked list of the applicants that I endorse. So, you know, as they say, it couldn't hurt. Yeah, and I'm very eager to work with people applying for this. You can also tell by the dates that this is an application to the program, not an application to the degree program. That is separate. So if you are applying for any degree program at Stanford, obviously that is a separate application, and just as obviously you need to be admitted to that program before you are named a Knight Hennessy Scholar. So bear that in mind. The focus is going to be first and foremost on the application you submit for your degree program, but obviously the Knight Hennessy is a terrific value added. So we can move on to Schwarzman Scholars. This is a one-year program for post-baccalaureate study at Tsinghua University in Beijing. Like Stanford, Schwarzman Scholars have their own place on campus. This is Schwarzman College. All the instruction and most of the interactions will be in English, so you do not need to be fluent in Chinese. There is a kind of focus on I'm looking for this.
I believe it's global affairs.
Public policy, economics, business, or international relations there, but the program will take applicants from any field. So, and I'm looking at the Schwarzman. It took a moment to come up. That's why I was stymied. But there is an explicit request or solicitation of applications from people in all fields. And there's a line on the page that says, we've had many successful applicants from science, engineering, and the humanities, in addition to social sciences and business. So don't feel like this is not in your area of study or expertise. They are looking for clients, applicants who can broaden the perspective of their peers. There will be 100 Schwarzman Scholars, a good number from the US, I think 40%, 20% from China, and then 40% from the rest of the world. So intentionally constructed, again, to foster discussion across international boundaries and across academic fields. This one is due on September 21st, so our internal deadline is September 10th. I know Professor Frank said this a couple of times. We need a Schwarzman Scholar the way we need a Rhodes Scholar. The Schwarzman Scholarship is much younger. I think it's only 5 years old now. And the Knight Hennessy Scholarship is also a very young award. It's also just 4 or 5 years old. So we want to get in on the ground floor. We've had a number of students make the finalist stage of both these scholarships, but I think somewhere in this room, we have someone who's going to win one for us. So the focus here is on leadership. So, we have had several discussions with members of the Schwarzman Foundation, and they do not want you to give them their definition of leadership. They want your definition of leadership. So be sure to be authentic when you talk about the kinds of experiences you have had that make you see yourself as a leader, what your leadership style is. One hint I would say is that it's much more about building consensus than about giving orders.
Sounds great. Thanks, Dr. Artis. Before we wrap up, I know that we also have a few other scholarships that we are not going to talk too much detail about, but did you want to mention maybe the Beinecke or Soros Fellowship? Oh, I'm sorry, there's actually one more scholarship, Churchill, before we head out.
Churchill Scholarship. This is for a one-year master's degree, as you can see, engineering, mathematics, and science at Cambridge University. This is often called the Rhodes Scholarship of Science. You can see there are 15 awards given every year, and you can also see it's competitive. The GPA needs to be about a 3.9 or better. We have been very fortunate and very good with this one. We've had 3 students win this in the last 5 years. If you heard me talk about the Goldwater, you would probably be interested in knowing that all 3 of those were also winners and one honorable mention of the Goldwater Scholarship. So one thing we have not said, I think Vincent hinted at it, is that there is a benefit to applying. Even applying and not getting it, you get better at telling your story, but applying for a Goldwater makes you feel more comfortable with the process. And I can tell you from experience that it can prepare you for applying for something that's even one level up. As I said, all our recent Goldwater winners have been Goldwater winners. And not only did I nominate them for the Goldwater, but I wrote or co-wrote letters of recommendation for the Churchill for all of them. So please see these awards, all of them, as progressions, not just individual exercises. And I will say that the people we've had win the Churchill have all been great students, but they've also been able to use the experience of study at Cambridge in their next steps. And they've all gone on to great graduate study in the US after they've returned. So, and you can see the deadlines there.
Great, thanks very much, Dr. Artis. As I was about to mention, do you mind just giving a shout out to the Beinecke and the Soros, or a couple other scholarships that you might be thinking students might be interested in?
So I know we've been talking a lot about STEM related scholarships. One of the great things about the Beinecke is that this is a scholarship, a post-bac scholarship for graduate study in the humanities and social sciences. That one is due the second Wednesday in February, I believe. I can nominate only one student for the Beinecke. Again, if you're, and I can't remember off the top of my head how many letters of recommendation, but I think at least 3. And if you are an artist, a musician, a creative writer, you can also submit a sample of your work along with the application. Since it's due in mid-February, please get in touch with me now if you are interested. I do have to nominate you, and I can nominate only one person. It's $30,000 over 2 years of graduate study, or actually they will work with you and make it fit the rest of your program. So $30,000 for graduate study. You apply as a junior. If you are given the award, you also get a $4,000 payment at the start of your last year of college to help with those expenses too. So it's actually a $34,000 award. And then the Soros, the Paul and Daisy Soros Fellowship for New Americans, you can apply for this as an undergraduate or a graduate, sort of people who are themselves first-generation Americans or children of first-generation Americans. This is a very nice, generous award. It's $45,000 a year for 2 years, so $90,000 for graduate study in any field. We do not need to endorse you, but I can. And we've had 2 winners in the last couple of years of this award, and we've been involved with both of those candidates. So please, if you're interested in the Soros, let me know. And we have, I'll just throw in the Strauss, we have a public service award. This is for students who have their own idea for a project that is not necessarily a research or an academic project. The focus here should be on a new public service idea and an innovative approach to something that you would consider a public service need. And it's really very generous. It's a $15,000 award to implement your plan. This year, we've had 3 students win, 2 students who've applied, 2 students that I nominated, and 1 who applied with another student at UCLA. And yes, I do have to nominate you if you're going to be considered, I can nominate 3 students a year, sophomores and juniors. So if you're interested in Beinecke, if you have an idea for a public service project and you're wondering if it is appropriate for a Beinecke, get in touch and we can talk. That is due usually in early March. I don't have the date right now, but we should talk soon.
Great. Thanks so much, Dr. Artis, for giving us a quick summary of all of those at the end. Thank you, all of you, for sticking around for an hour and a half or as long as you've been able to. I understand people are very busy, but we have a ton of different scholarships. I would invite you to come talk to us. You've seen all of these advisors here. They want to meet you. We want to meet you. I want to meet you. And so you can contact us. You can see our contact information here, and feel free to ask questions. If you are unsure where to begin, feel free to contact me and we can make an appointment and talk more about how to get started. But thank you so much for being here, and we will hopefully work with you in the next few months or next years. Take care. Thanks.